It's the camera, not the photographer. All right, welcome back to Photography After Hours. Cheers. All
Hey
right.
gang, what's happening?
So we are back here on the Photography After Hours show, and we're here with Susie and Sprague.
Hey.
And they're going to be helping us out today to talk about It's the Camera, not the Photographer. So before we get into that, we are sponsored by PAC, the Photographers Adventure Club, and Parkwood Studios, where this is recorded at. So check those out, photoadvclub.com. So you came up with this topic.
I did.
So you wanna say basically that it's the camera doing the job and it's not actually the photographer doing the job.
I do, and I look forward to your emails.
Your hate mail, right?
That's right.
So leave your comments below for Sprague.
Well, it's somewhat tongue-in-cheek because obviously you have to know how to take a good picture. But there is a point where there are a lot of cameras out there right now, and some of them, frankly, are not very good.
Yep.
And, as we've talked about before, they have a tendency to have this features rotisserie where they simply take features off one and put it on another and rotate them around. So what it really gets down to at some point is once you've got an idea about composition and lighting, that it's really important to look for a camera that's got great dynamic range and good low light ISO capability and good low light autofocus capability.
Yep.
And if you lack those three things, and it takes a good camera to get those things, then your shots are not going to be as good even if you're good. So
those are the three big ones. That's
right.
Really all they seem to change in these cameras. They'll put other bells and whistles on, but like it's like, oh, you get more ISO, but it's never enough. It's never like wows me, It's never like, that's it. You've done it, you know.
Well, the Sony AR7 II. Wait, did I mess it up?
That's
I'm
that sounds
which
right.
model is it?
Right.
So that one does have ISO on it that I find pretty impressive, because we shot in pretty much no light. There was no moon even out in Arches National Park, and or was it Joshua Tree? I think it was Joshua Tree.
Joshua Tree, we're at the Arch.
Yeah, because we were at that
Mobius.
Is it Mobius Arch? One of them. And the only light that we were getting, which to the eye seemed like nothing, but it was from Indio, California, a little ways away. And the shots that I took, you could bring them up and it looked very much like daylight. So there was some grain to them, etc., but it wasn't noise it did not completely fall apart. So it had good high ISO performance, very good low light performance, and I just couldn't have gotten that shot unless I had a camera capable of that.
See, so it is the camera.
Yeah.
It wasn't you.
Right.
See?
In some instances, it is the camera. So we are totally only half kidding with that.
We were.
Right. And
I thought Sprague was serious.
Well, and I do most of my shooting, with a 5D Mark III, which I like, and I know it's a little bit pricey for some people, but
it'll come down soon.
Well, yeah,
it's as soon as the new one comes out,
Mark IV comes out, and
maybe you'll buy them for like $800.
And Nikon is coming out with some fantastic new stuff too. So I think there's going to be some people that are going to be jumping brands to try the new stuff. But and I wished I had done this early in my career with this, is to start out with a camera that you can afford and decide whether you like it and learn some of the basic skills. But from there, don't buy the cameras in steps. Just go from there straight to the better camera. Because as I was telling you guys before, I had a 20D, and then I went to a 50D, which was a very unfortunate camera for Canon. And that was the trip that I took to Egypt. And the pictures were disappointing, very disappointing.
Yeah.
So
frustrating too when you got your, like you said, you got your familiarity and everything with the 20D, and you felt like you built your skill set, and then you went to the new model thinking, well, this is bigger, better, it jumps higher, runs faster, and then you get there in your destination. For many people, that's a once in a lifetime
Right.
kind of thing. And then the shots you walked away from or away with probably compositionally were great,
Right.
but in terms of your ability to work with them and
Right. By the time you cropped them and pulled them up or tried to pull any sort of detail in from the shadows or tried to tone down the highlights, it just didn't work. There was a lot of color noise in the shadows. The highlights, you would try and compress them down, and it just got really flat and milky, kind of like a painted wall. And so
Well, I had
they
a
weren't too-
20D, a 30D, a 40D, a 7D, a 5D Mark III.
Right.
So I skipped the 50D, luckily, because it
Right.
sounds like that was a bad way to go. But there was what I found, there wasn't much difference between them. I got a bigger screen and more megapixels. Bigger screen, more megapixels. Then it wasn't even a bigger screen anymore. It's just a 5 instead of a 4 on the front of the 50D. It didn't seem like there was major upgrades. So it's just like when you start going up those little tiny jumps, it doesn't seem like there's a big like wow factor.
Yeah, I mean, a good sensor really matters. I mean, the 7D was a fantastic camera for the for that particular size sensor. And then once you got to the 5D Mark III, it was just an order of magnitude better than the 7D.
Oh yeah, the 5D was great. I only just sold mine a couple months ago, and it was still a great camera. They still sell it for full price at B&H. It's it'll drop when the new one comes out, which is unfortunate the way our market is. It's like, oh, it's worth $2,000 today. It's worth nothing tomorrow. Literally overnight, it'll just drop.
It'll fizzle pretty quickly. And I just think that something like that's really important. I mean, even with the Sonys, I mean, that's a fantastic camera. I mean, it's a full frame sensor, and they've really worked on the sensor. And Sony makes their own sensors. They make sensors for other manufacturers' cameras, and they do a great job. They're finally starting to get a really great lens suite. So I think if I was doing something in terms of studio photography or travel photography or anything like that, I'd be looking at the higher end Sonys, Nikons, and Canons, because you're going to be so much happier with the images that you get than you are going to be. Particularly, and I know you guys are using a lot of the Micro Four Thirds cameras with some success, and I tried one, and to be perfectly honest, I haven't used it as much as you two, so I really, probably are not as qualified to say it, but I just wasn't. I thought the images were pretty flat compared to what you can get with the the full frame cameras, and of course there's a price point difference too. So you should be able to get a better picture for it. But I think at some point that needs to be part of your evaluation.
I think you need to balance between the two and stuff. I'm really liking my Micro Four Thirds. I shoot a GX8, and I'm really liking it. It's a better size and form factor and stuff for me, and it has the features that I need, that I want. I'm probably not trying to push my images terribly too much in terms of their away from their out of camera dynamic range, that kind of stuff. I'm also not cropping in on them and things like that, but I'm not printing them huge right now either. But it's definitely
have to shoot it with
serving me well.
intention. You have to, like, if I want to shoot this glass of beer, I have to shoot the beer, not like shoot the whole table and say I'm going to crop in. So with my 5D, I could easily crop that out, and I have enough megapixels on that size full frame sensor. So I have to do a lot more in camera cropping and editing and just forward think stuff a little bit more with that. You don't just want to be like, oh, I'm gonna take a picture of both of you guys and I'm gonna cut you out and blow you up. I would have to like say, okay, if I want to, I just better take a picture of both of you and then take a picture of you guys singly. So then if I do want to blow just one person up, I can have that capability. That's the thing with the smaller sensors. You don't have the cropping power that you would have with a bigger sensor.
They also do have a limit in terms of their color sensitivity, and there are technical terms for this and stuff, and they're not coming to mind, but it has to do with the photosites in the sensor and their color depth. And the Sony mirrorless performs very well in that regard.
Right.
The Micro Four Thirds cameras in general don't perform as well. They're still considered excellent quality, but up in the 1D, 1DX range, the 5Ds, they have better. It's like real buttery color, It's just it's so smooth, and not a lot of the mid-range priced cameras really can do it that well. Right. So you get what you pay for.
Well, and you also start getting diffraction errors in the smaller cameras at aperture settings, in excess of f8, 11, 16, 22, that you can't really take out, and that's has a lot to do with the size of the sensor and the size of the lens.
Yeah.
And that's not a problem that's really terribly acute in a full frame camera. So, like you said, you've got with the cropping issues and a limit to what you can do aperture wise, then you're sort of tying your hands with that camera, I kind of feel.
Yeah. So on the flip side of, like we were talking about, this topic is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, right? It's the camera, not the
Right.
photographer. And so to an extent that's kind of true. And one of the analogies that's often seen on social media is kind of when people comment and they're like, oh, that's a great picture, you must have a really nice camera.
Right. Yeah.
And they're
Like,
like,
oh,
oh, that was a tasty meal, you must have a really excellent oven,
Yeah, that's
something
right.
like
Or,
that,
yeah,
right?
really nice pots.
Right. And I think that it illustrates the point, right? That it really is the photographic, it's the skill of the artist behind the camera that really does matter.
Yeah,
but
I could
that
give
being
a
said,
brand new 1DX Mark II to like the Uncle Bob kind of guy, and yeah, he's
Right.
going to get lucky a percentage of the
Right.
time, but there's got to be a consistency
yeah. But
to know how to repeat those shots. Like
Well,
if you just shoot a shot and you're like, wow, that's great, and you blow it up like Lisa's bird back there, you can get a lucky shot of that, and you're like, click, I got it, wow. But can you do that every time that bird flies in
Right.
front of you and know how to do it? You may not be able to. And I know I was at that point at one point. We all were, where just, hey, we got lucky, and then we started to learn how to get consistent, how to get the settings down, how to get
it's the consistency that we're striving for.
Yeah, your
and-
dud level goes down. I mean,
Yeah.
if you shoot in
Your
program,
dud
you might
level.
get 1 out of 10 shots that really works.
Yeah.
And then even if it's properly composed, and then once you're able to read the light and set your camera properly
Right.
and compose, then your list of duds starts going down to maybe 1 in 10.
Well, it's kind of funny because this theory is how the rangers in the national parks and at like places like Goldfield, Arizona and stuff rate who they consider a professional. It's like, oh, you have a big camera, so you're a professional. Well, my dad can afford a 1DX or that new Nikon whatever 5, and it's like, but he's not a professional just because he
Right.
can afford a more expensive camera. A lot of doctors buy Hasselblads because
Yeah.
they can afford them. They don't know how to use them, but they buy
Mhm.
them. So that people are, even other people are judging how how the quality of the camera is related to the professionalism or the pictures that are coming out of it, and it's not really true,
Right.
Yeah.
all the time.
Oh.
Yeah, the analogy that I was the other side of the analogy I had in mind was, you can't bake like a big delicate souffle for 6 in an easy bake oven. I mean, you need if you're going to
Yeah.
use the oven analogy, there's still truth to that, right? It still might be partly of the equipment.
Yeah, Viking range is wonderful.
Yes.
So do
You
people
can make
go?
a hell of a pie in that thing. You better believe it.
So is there a level of beginner's luck that someone goes out and gets a they have an iPhone, they get some great shots, people tell them, oh, it's great, you should get a better camera. They go out and get a Canon or Nikon beginner level T1, T5, something like that. And is there a level of beginner's luck that comes along with that all of a sudden now they do have better gear, so they are getting better quality pictures, but they haven't really honed in the skills that follow up with that?
Well, actually, I was just reading, and this was on the B&H site. They had a National Geographic photographer, and his name was Sam Abel, and he talked about this very situation. And his dad was a photographer, and his dad gave him this camera when he was very young, and he took a picture of his dad on a platform at a train station. And this picture that he took as a kid, in his opinion and a lot of other people's opinion, is the best picture he ever took. And
Wow.
basically, he came in with
Yeah.
really no
So there
preconceived
can be
notions, and he just
accidental-
nailed it.
Yeah, and so that might be partly accidental or partly no outside influence of what he was supposed to compose, right? Like the monkey that took the selfie.
Right, yeah.
That's
The
kind
monkey
of
lost in court, though.
I know.
Yeah, composition is something you either have an eye for or you have to develop an eye for, and some people just have it great right out of the box.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, and I found this, and I'm sure you two found this too, that you can look back on some of the pictures you took when you first started, and they're incredible shots. And then you look at what you're taking once you know what you're doing, and saying, "Well, this is crap," And
Yeah. I'm like,
how did I
everything's-
get from here to here? I'm supposed to know what I'm
stuck
doing.
in this rule of thirds thing.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it just really doesn't, evoke any sort of emotion from the
Yeah.
photo. I mean, it's perfectly composed and perfectly shot according to all the rules, but you just look at
It's
it,
not.
and
Yeah.
it just doesn't get any sort of an
It's
emotional
not moving
response.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The thing I want to mention though too, and we are kind of harping on the, it is, you really need to, if you're going to get into photography seriously, then you need to go ahead and invest in some capable equipment.
Right.
That being said, we have members that are in the photography club that are just starting out or just don't invest in the equipment because of their lifestyle, things like that. And so they're working with more entry-level type equipment, and they get some stunning shots.
Mm-hmm.
So we have some members that they do have that natural eye,
Right.
like you're talking about, where they're really telling the story about where they are, what they're doing, what it felt like to be there, that
Yep.
kind of stuff, the lighting, the time of day, all of that kind of stuff. And so,
Yep. So as we wrap up, it's the camera, not the photographer. So we said we're half kidding.
That's right.
Good gear definitely does help motivate you and help you get better quality shots, better megapixels. So you called BS on it, and so we're saying it is kind of half and half. You can have beginner's luck. Be careful for that. Don't get all overzealous because you get a few good shots. Keep practicing and training yourself, training your eye, learning, going to classes, looking stuff up on YouTube, watching stuff like this, and consistency. Everything, you'll hear me say this over and over again in my one-on-one class. Consistency is everything. If you cannot take a picture and duplicate it and know how to duplicate it, then you don't have anything. So, you have to be able to say, okay, I shot that and I got a blurry background and it wasn't on auto. You can do that again or not do that if you don't want that. So in wrap up, the next one's going to be, it's the lenses, not the camera that makes it. Bio lenses.
Yeah, it's the film, not the sensor. Then we're going to go down across that creaky bridge.
Coming soon.
Yeah. The
So-
excitement is unbearable.
digital against film.
Yeah.
So,
That's right.
so put your comments down below. Let us know if you think there's elements that are correct or incorrect. If it's the camera, if it's the photographer, if it's both. And we'd love to see your comments in the comments section. And we'll see you real soon. It's been Photography After Hours.
Cheers.
Cheers.